everyone, and welcome to the Conversations with Mentors series. This will be my first episode, and I have the absolute pleasure today of having Hans-Kristian Vittinghus from Denmark here. Um, it's the very first episode, so we are already starting off with a bang. Sorry, HK, for all the technical difficulties, but um, I'm glad that we are still able to do it. And thanks for being the very first guest of this series.
It's all my pleasure. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the invite. And technical difficulties, I've experienced the same with my podcast before, so I know what you're going through.
Okay, so for those who may not know you, which I think is not possible really in the badminton world, um, HK has quite a long and impressive rap sheet. Um, he is 34 years of age, currently ranked number 42 in the world, but has been as high as number 8. I hope I got that correct.
Correct.
He has been a member of the Danish team since 2005 and is a holder of several titles, ranging from international challenges, series, and international series, super series, and Grand Prix titles. He's currently a part of the Danish league. I'm not sure how to pronounce the team that you're a part of. Can you shed some light on that?
It's pronounced Højbjerg, the team I'm part of now. Højbjerg, okay. So quite Danish name.
Yeah. But I think one of your most notable achievements was being a crucial member of the 2016 Thomas Cup team for Denmark.
That is definitely one of my biggest experiences. We played Indonesia in the final. Malaysia was the semi-final.
Okay. So sort of like break the ice, since we've never really met before. Are you down for some fun rapid fire questions before we get into the main conversation?
Yeah, sure. I'm all game.
Okay. Do you prefer cardio or weights?
I prefer weights, probably.
What about footwork or multi-drills?
I prefer neither, but I would say probably multi-drills.
Okay. You're Europe or Asia?
I have to go with Europe. It's not that I don't like Asia. I like being in Asia. I go there quite often, but there's no place like home, right? And Europe is home for me.
Yeah. Okay. Are you more of a coffee guy or tea?
Well, I don't like coffee at all. I love the smell of coffee, but I really do not like the taste. I've never learned to drink it. Everyone said that I would learn it when I became a parent, but no, I really don't like coffee, so it's an easy choice. I'll go with tea.
Okay. And what's your favorite day of the week?
My favorite day of the week is Sundays, both because it's a day off, so I have a lot of time with my family, but at the moment also because it's NFL Sunday. So I'm a big fan of American football and NFL. My favorite team is the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions. So every Sunday I look forward to the matches and just having a day off with my family. And when it's evening time in Denmark, I get to watch a lot of NFL matches. So Sunday is definitely my favorite day.
Oh, wow. Well, I know nothing about the NFL. What's your favorite part of, watching American football?
I think my favorite part is that it can change in a second. Like every game is still open until the very end. Usually most games are, and the momentum can just change in just a second often. And even in badminton, it's not like that, because if you have a 10-point lead or something like that, sometimes it can be a bit boring, and you're just waiting for the end of the game. But in NFL, each play during the match can be crucial. So I think that's one of the main things about it that I do enjoy. Although the matches are sometimes a bit long, I'll admit that one match can last 3 hours, so it's a bit long.
Okay. And the last question for rapid fire is, if you had no fears for a day, what would you do?
I would probably like to do bungee jumping or something like that. I'm not afraid of heights, but I just don't see myself doing it anyway. And I think the
See.
feeling of just falling down would be quite nice if you know that nothing is gonna happen. So again, it's not like I'm not afraid of heights, but doing bungee jumping or parachuting or something crazy like that, I don't see myself doing it, but I think it would be a pretty amazing experience.
Let's dive right into the questions because we had a lot of questions from, like young athletes. Um,
Sure.
okay, so how old were you when you started playing badminton and how did that come about?
I started when I was 5 years old, um, and it actually came about as as a coincidence. We had just recently moved from one part of the country to another, closer to the capital in Denmark, Copenhagen. Um, and we got this flyer in the mailbox from the local badminton club. And my one of my two older sisters, I have two sisters, both older than me, and the oldest one wanted to go and try play badminton after seeing that flyer. And they had some Saturday badminton where it's for only for small kids, and it's not really badminton training. It's more just like playing around, fooling around with badminton and other activities. So they try
Yeah.
to kind of incorporate badminton in having fun. And my parents thought it would be a good idea for us to meet some new friends and just get all the kids out of the house. So they sent me and my other sister along with the oldest one, and it just caught on from there. I never stopped playing since then, and I've been playing since that Saturday morning where we started.
Oh, that's great. And well, I think this is more for like teenagers in the sense that there are a lot of us who are struggling to balance like school and badminton. And I would say, especially in like the Panam region and well, especially in my country, Trinidad, a lot of people tend to drop out of the sport when it's time to go to university. So, can you share your experience balancing school and the badminton work life, or probably as it relates to juggling your family life as well as being a professional player?
Yeah, well, I used to study at the same time as playing, but I'm not sure if it works the same way here as it does in Trinidad, for example. But when I went out of elementary school, um, I went to high school where it was possible to have training twice a week during morning time. So it was kind of part of what I had to do when I went to school. It was some special sports line. We have a high school that's specialized for sports people. So we have morning training Tuesday and Thursdays. So that was a way to get extra training. Of course, it also meant that I was off from school a little bit later in the day because I still had to do the same lessons as everyone else. They just made it possible for us to have training during morning time. After I became like more of a professional when I graduated high school, I've actually taken a bachelor degree. I did that part time while playing, and lots of the studies were online. So I was just following a class that was physical, like the people were there physically, and they were recording everything, and I could watch it online, and then I would have the chance to email my teachers or co-students, and a few times I had some Skype meetings or whatever to ask some questions or get some extra explanations if there was something I didn't really understand. And I would say, like in general, of course, it's hard sometimes having to do both. But for me, it was quite nice also sometimes to have the studies on the side, because I could focus on that if my badminton didn't really go well, or if I was down after losing some important matches. I always had something else to focus on. And I'm also a type of person that kind of likes to have some sort of security. So even for me, with the level I have now, I've not always known that I would be able to live off badminton. So it was nice for me to know that I had something to rely on if badminton didn't go the way that I was hoping for. Just I have one thing to add, because I hear that quite often, that people they tend to drop out if they have to start studying more, especially in countries where you cannot maybe make a living out of badminton. And I think one thing that's important to remember is that you don't have to quit badminton. Like you can just play maybe once a week or twice a week or once every 2 weeks. It would be so good if people could just keep attached to the sport in some way, because you never know how things are gonna evolve or develop. So maybe at some point, if you want to return to the sport, it's a big advantage if you just kept some kind of contact with it. And badminton is all about having fun, and you can have fun even if you play once a week or twice a week or once a month. So I think that's the most important thing. Even if you want to have a good education as well, it is possible to do both. Obviously, you get better if you play badminton all the time, but it's not necessarily the only way to do things.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really admired about you as a professional player. Because I mean, when I was doing research for this interview, when I was listening to the badminton podcast, I saw you on there as well, and the Badminton Europe podcast as well. You mentioned that both times, it's all about enjoying the sport. And I mean, you're at basically the highest level, playing with the best athletes in the world, and you still have that as a top priority. So yeah, I think a lot of people can learn from that.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, for me, it is the most important thing. That badminton is supposed to be fun. That's why we all started, and that's why we should keep on playing. And badminton is basically no different than any other job would be for me. That I would need to enjoy it to keep doing it. And I think that should be the goal for everyone, no matter what they do, that they should enjoy what they do every day. And if they don't, try to find something else. I know it's not that easy always, but at least that should be the goal in my mind.
Okay. And another thing that a lot of athletes um, tend to derail from the sport is, the lack of sponsors. And well, I don't know how it is in Europe, but in the Pan region, it's also difficult. So there are a lot of self-funded athletes. So how was your transition from becoming a professional player, and was it hard to gain sponsors or funding?
It was definitely hard to make a living of badminton and get the funding that's necessary to become a world-class player. Because as I'm sure all of your viewers will also know, that if you want to be anything in badminton, you have to go to Asia all the time, because it's like 80% of all the big events are being played in Asia. And traveling there and living in hotels all the time, it's not cheap. And I'm not sure if it's just like in Trinidad or the Pan Am region, but sponsors are not easy to get if you're not a high caliber player. Also in Europe, our living standard is quite high, but that also means we need a lot of money to kind of uphold it. So I actually made the choice to stay or keep living with my parents for quite long. I lived at home until I was 24, which is quite unnormal in Denmark. I don't know what it's like in Trinidad, but in Denmark you usually move away from home when you're 18, 19. I I decided that I was not gonna spend money on my own place or living in my own place. I wanted to save everything I could to spend it on my badminton career. So I didn't move away from home until I actually broke into top 30 in the world, because at that time it became easier for me to get the good sponsors that started paying better money, and then I could afford living in a small apartment by myself and still have enough money to travel the world. But before reaching a ranking like that, it it's not for the money you should do it. That's for sure. The
Yeah.
money is good if you break into the top rankings, but yeah, that shouldn't be the. It can be the main motivation, but I think if it is the main motivation, you need to come up with a plan B to make it to the top first.
Yeah. I think if you're involved in badminton, I think it's safe to say that out of all the other sports, um, I think badminton players don't really do it for the money, because I think that you need to be at the top, or at least have a decent ranking before you begin to earn like a good amount of money. So I think the
Mm.
athletes need to have some other sort of drive before they break into the top 30 or something. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely, 100% agree with that.
Since you said it was difficult during that period, was there a particular person or persons that inspired you when you were a young athlete or during that period of time?
Yeah, I've actually never really had this kind of idol or anything. Like, there's been lots of players and sports persons from different sports that I found cool to watch, or yeah, small details where I thought, yeah, that's pretty nice. But I never had that like one person that was my big inspiration in any way. Um, it, if we go with badminton, I've had a few players like an old Chinese men's singles player called Chen Hong, and also an old Indonesian guy who's now a coach, Irvansha, who I really enjoyed watching play because of their playing style. They were very attacking. They hit a lot of smashes and rushed the net all the time. And that was how I liked to play when I was a junior. But I wouldn't say that I tried to copy them or anything, or find inspiration. I just enjoyed watching them play, like I enjoyed watching yeah, almost everyone. If I had to kind of like, it's more in the later years of my career that I've actually become more inspired of others. A guy like Roger Federer is a guy that I admire a lot, and I've like over the past 5-10 years, I've been quite inspired by the way that he handles himself off court. So that way, I've tried to gain some inspiration in yeah, how to not only be a sports person, but also someone that makes a difference outside of court. But I think there's loads of great examples of big persons, personalities, especially in tennis. I think there's a lot of good examples there. Roger Federer just happens to be the one that's my favorite, but even a guy like Nadal, who's his biggest competitor, is also a guy that I admire for the way he handles himself off court. So I actually find more inspiration of how people do things off court than I actually do on court, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think next to badminton, tennis is probably my next favorite sport because I started in tennis
Same.
before.
Mm,
So,
all right.
yeah, I think a lot of my inspiration comes from tennis personalities too.
Yeah,
Now we're
definitely.
gonna,
I love tennis. I used to play it for a few years as well. When I was a junior badminton player, it was not possible to play badminton during summertime here in Denmark. All the halls were closed, so we had to do something else. And for me, it was tennis.
oh, okay. And any particular reason why you didn't stay in tennis or choose tennis over badminton?
Uh, yeah, well, I didn't start playing tennis until I was like 12, something like that. And at that time, I had already been playing badminton for 7 years. So obviously, I
Oh,
was
wow.
very good at badminton and not as good in tennis. And I think like every other human, I enjoy doing what I'm good at. So it was not really a difficult choice. I just played tennis during summertime because I enjoyed it, but it was not really any competition with badminton. Badminton was my main thing. I used to play football when I was younger before tennis, um, and I chose badminton over football because just I just prefer the individual based sports. I hated the fact that sometimes in football I could play well and we could still lose. I also hated the fact that it's a different culture in football where parents seem to be a lot more eager to kind of participate and stand on the sidelines shouting stuff at the kids. In badminton, it was more like a silent sport where parents are just watching and not really getting involved as much. So I enjoyed that about badminton as well, and that's actually the main reason why I quit football. I was so tired of listening to parents just shouting, "Go there, pass to him," or stuff like that. I didn't want any part of that. And in badminton, there's quiet when you play at least.
Yeah, yeah, I like that perspective. Well, I actually started off, yeah, well, I mentioned that before. I started off with tennis. So I didn't meet badminton until I was like almost 13 years old. So I think it was the other way around for me.
Yeah, all right, cool. That's pretty impressive what you the level you already reached then, if you started in such a late age. But I think that also just tells something about that it's not always the best way to just start specializing early. You can gain a lot from doing other sports as well and just becoming a better athlete. Because I'm sure you became a pretty good athlete from playing tennis, right?
Yeah, because tennis was a lot of running, so I at least came in with some sort of fitness. So yeah. Anyway, we went a little off track there. So, have you ever experienced performance anxiety or nerves, and how did you cope with that, especially early on in your career?
Yeah, well, for sure. I think we all experience nerves. I'm 100% certain that even guys like Lin Dan, Lee Chong Wei, Victor Axelsen, everyone, we experience nerves at some point in our career, uh, and I still do, even though I'm almost 35 now in just 2 weeks. Um, it's all about how you deal with it, but it's completely normal to feel nervous or anxiety about certain matches. I always try to deal with it by like I've been working with sports psychologists for some time, but even before then, I was trying to deal with it in a certain way. But with my sports psychologist, we've had a lot of focus on trying to get my thoughts or my focus back on the game plan. That's always what I need to try and return to. So if I'm nervous before a match, it's natural the thoughts are there. I'm not trying to keep them away. I just try to register that, okay, I'm a bit nervous, and then I try to analyze why am I nervous, and then I focus on, yeah, what can I do to perform at my best. And basically the only thing I can do to perform my best is to have focus on my game plan. So I always have a plan for each match I play. I know what I want to do, what I need to do on court, and I always try to find back to that focus. And my mind will keep wandering and go back to nerves or thinking about consequences. What if I lose? What will happen to my ranking? What will people think? Stuff like that. That happens all the time. But it's quite important for me not to try and avoid that happening, because then I will spend a lot of energy on it, and I will also panic if it does appear in my head. So I just accept it, and then I try to get back to my main focus, which is the game plan. And the game plan can be anything. It can be tactical, so thinking about how I need to play, but it can also be to keep calm or think positively. That can also be part of the game plan. So that's my best advice, to try and just find something before the match that you decide these are the 1, 2, 3 key points that I need to focus on. And every time the annoying or bad thoughts are coming, just accept it, and then refocus onto your main game plan.
Okay. And I think it really shows that, you know, even the best in the world are human, and we all go through like the same sort of thoughts. And um, I think it'll be very comforting for a lot of athletes, realizing
Mm.
that, you know, you have the same thoughts as they do. So
Mm.
that's basically how you built present moment focus over the course of your career.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I also have a good example of one other thing I did in when I played the Thomas Cup final that you mentioned in the introduction. Before I went on court for the final and decisive match against Indonesia, I was obviously very nervous. Denmark had never won the gold medal before. We lost in the final
Yeah.
8 times, so it was a very important match also for Danish badminton history. And I knew if I lost, we lost, and if I won, we were going to win the gold medal. But I had prepared for that moment. That was before we went there. We knew that I was third man single, so I could be in that position. So right before I went on court with my coach, and I was feeling the nerves, we just looked at each other, and I told him, "Yeah, but this is what we prepared for. So
Yeah.
why not enjoy it?" And I know it sounds simple, but basically that's what it's like before every match. This is what we prepare for. We prepare for the matches. This is what we want to do. So we might as well go and do our best and enjoy it. Because if we don't, then why did we do all those multis of footwork or cardio or weights or whatever boring training or hard training we have done? And for me, it also doesn't work every time. I also lose matches because I get negative or nervous. But at least that's how I try to approach it every time. But it's a work in progress, and I've been working with it my entire career, and I will keep working with it until I retire someday.
On that note, how do you recover mentally after having lost, let's say, a tough match, or let's say you played below your average, or you thought that you didn't, you know, put out your all into that match? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, well, I'm not always the best at just letting go. Especially when I'm playing tournaments in Asia, where I feel like I'm sacrificing a bit to be here, family wise and stuff like that. I can become extremely negative if not so much if I lose, but more if I do not play the way I want to or do not perform at the level I feel I can play at. I don't mind losing if I just did what I had set out to do and I feel like I played well. My opponent just played better, then I can accept it more easily.
Yeah.
But if I do not follow my plan or yeah, I do not behave on court the way I think was the best, then I can be quite hard on myself. And I've learned over the years that there's no quick fix for me. I
Yeah.
need at least a day where I can just yeah, be really hard on myself. I allow myself to do that. So for a day or two, and then after that, I also try to move on. I like to watch video of the match, even though it's quite hard to see the yeah, the performance if it's bad. There's a lot to learn from it.
Yeah.
But I try also to focus on the few positive things that there are in a match. And even if I play bad, there will always be some things that you can look at that's positive. Maybe it's your movement, or maybe it's just one specific rally or one shot that worked well. So yeah, I kind of allow myself to be really negative for 1 or 2 days, but then I also know I won't benefit from keep doing it. So yeah, for me it's 1 or 2 days, and then just move on and start looking ahead, because you won't really gain anything from keep pounding yourself in the head with negativity.
It's really comforting that you just said that, because I think I'm the same person in terms of that aspect. I tend to get
Mm.
really hard on myself after, you know, playing below average, and that is one of the things that I still struggle to from this day, from the very first tournament I played in for badminton to to quite recently, and or at least when I was able to play. And I don't think a lot of people understand that in that way, you know, it's easy to say, you know, to to just move on, but it's not really
Mm.
that easy to do. and I also need a couple of
It's
days
not.
to myself. Yeah.
I think it's also important to allow yourself that day or two to do that, because if you don't, I don't believe you will deal with it really. If you just try to move on straight away, it will come back to haunt you at some point. At least that's my belief.
Well, I think I always wondered why, how come other players could, you know, sort of like bounce back quicker than I did
Mm.
after, let's say, a tough match. And I always wondered why I would get emotional in terms of, whenever I play below average and, thinking back to all the sacrifices that I had to make as well. And um,
Mm.
it wasn't until I started to find some solace in like the way that I recovered mentally from a match was when I attended a training camp in Canada, and they they had a Canadian Olympian come to talk about us, and he basically said what you said, and
Mm.
he also said that his dad told him that if he's emotional, it's because he cares. So put aside that time for you to cry or be hard on yourself for that
Mm.
particular amount of time, and then take that and move forward, and that will be
Mm.
sort of like the fuel for moving forward and improving in your game and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes great sense.
Was there ever a moment where you lost motivation to train, um, or you've ever been in like a rut or a bad patch? And what did you do?
Well, yeah, well, I've never really lost the motivation to train. I have been demotivated at times, but as we also spoke about earlier, I play badminton because I think it's fun, and I still think it's fun. Also, in training, there's always something you can do with badminton that's fun. At least for me, there is. But
Yeah.
I have been going through some rough patches, especially as part of the national team set up in Denmark. The competition there is quite fierce, and for some of the years I didn't feel like I was progressing the way I wanted to, and I could see the other men's singles players progressing more than me, and that was quite demotivating. And I had some talks with some coaches outside of the national center about maybe quitting the national center and trying to find another way to become a good player by starting at a academy or something like that. Um, so during that time, I was very much in doubt if it was still worth me going into it 100%, or if I should try finding another way. I also had one time where I was close of not quitting badminton, but quitting my full-time engagement in it. So I was considering if I should start studying more or working more on the side to have a more kind of normal life, as a lot of my friends had, where they could move away from home. As I said, I lived at home until quite late. But every time I just come to the conclusion that this is what I love to do. I love playing badminton. I cannot imagine another job that I would find more fun to do, like working at an office or whatever it can be, working from 8 to 4 or 5 or whatever. I think badminton is the best job there is. So yeah, I've come to that conclusion every time that of course I want to keep on going, and I'm pretty good at analyzing. So every time I really analyze uh, my performances and stuff like that, there was always something good for me to take, and then try and build from there and move on. And I'm happy I managed to decide on keep going every time and keep my full-time engagement going. But it doesn't mean there hasn't been some rough patches along the way, and there still is. Almost every year you find yourself in a bad position at some point. Even 2016, which was my best year by far, where I won a Super Series and made it to the Super Series finals, I still had some really bad periods as well. That's just the nature of sports. Unless you're Kento Momota and you win everything, we all go
Yeah.
through ups and downs. It's part of being an athlete.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, a lot of like questions referring to like mental preparation. So I'll just go through like a couple more.
Yep.
Say, what's your advice to someone who's having a bit of a mental block? I think I went through this bad patch for uh about a year or something like that. And let's say the mental block is like after a certain stage in a game, let's say right after the mid game interval, you lose points consecutively, or
Mm.
let's say the same opponent you play against, you always get this block anytime you play them because let's say the head to head is like 4-love, or yeah, something like that.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's difficult to say one thing that can help everyone because we all work differently, also with our mindsets. I would
Yeah.
say that like if you hit a bad patch where you lose 4, 5, 6 points in a row, it's always a good idea to try and kind of break the rhythm of your opponent. So take a bit longer between points. I know it's maybe not the most uh, sportsmanship thing to do, but it can be effective to try and change the
Yeah.
shuttle, tie your shoelace, just anything you can do to get a longer break, not only to break the rhythm of your opponent, but also to give yourself more time to regain your focus. Because what happens when you lose many points in a row is that you start thinking about the consequences. You start becoming negative. Often you would start thinking about all the points that you lost, which makes really no sense to do because it's not going to help you
Yeah.
move forward. Uh, so that extra time you should use that on kind of what I've been onto before. That you should use it on just kind of realizing what's happening, the thoughts are there, accepting them, sorry, and then refocus on your game plan, what you need to do to get out of this predicament. So if you have a plan of exactly how you need to play this opponent, that's what your focus needs to be, regardless of the fact that you just lost 6 points in a row. Obviously, if the tactics that you planned before the match is not working, if you've done all of that and you're still losing, you need to change your game plan. So you cannot just stick with your plan all the time if it doesn't work, but you should. Oh, sorry. I just need
It's
to disconnect my cell phone.
it's okay.
I'm in isolation in Thailand, so they call every time that dinner is served or food is served outside of the room. I need to pick it up outside. So I'll do that afterwards. But yeah, you should change your plan, of course, if it's not working. If everything is if you're doing everything perfectly and you're still losing, then yeah, either your opponent is just much better, but often it's because the plan is not the right one, and you should move on from it. But yeah, that's some of the ways you can do it. But again, we all work differently, so I
Yeah.
think the main thing is that you realize what's happening in your head, and that's often the difficult part. I also have matches where after the match I'm like, but why didn't you register that obviously that was what was happening to you, because
Yeah.
you get caught up in the heat of the moment. Your pulse is very high, so you don't think as clearly as I do right now, just sitting here with my pulse being just completely normal. So it is something you need to practice and work on, and you do that best by working on it in game-like situations. So if you play matches in training, if you do hard physical work in training, try to register your thoughts, analyze, and even try focusing on something else. So before a physical training session, you decide on a fake game plan, so something that you want to focus on, and then during your training you can try and focus on that. So every time register, oh, I'm thinking so much about being really tired now, I need to focus on my game plan, which is just a fake game plan in this instance, but it's a good way to try and train it. So you also be able to do it when you're high on pressure and pulse and adrenaline and everything on court.
Okay, yeah, those were some very good tips. I think even if we're all different people, I think everyone can take like a bit of your advice. Well, I tend to watch a lot of like different athletes that inspire me, and it's across like a host of different sports. So yeah, I think I'm a sports junkie in terms of this, but I heard a lot of athletes talking about this, and I wanted to see if you've ever had the same experience. You've just accomplished one of your biggest goals, and you kind of struggle to
Mm.
move on after that period. So a lot of people, it would be like the Olympics. A lot of athletes have said
Mm.
after the Olympics, it felt like they ran full speed into a brick wall because they don't know what to do after, because that's been their biggest goal for a really long time. Or let's say a low, and referring
Mm.
back to um, going through a bad patch. Have you ever experienced something like that?
Yeah, I think they call that the thing you described Olympic blues after the Olympics. That a lot of athletes experience that. Unfortunately I've never played the Olympics, so I haven't experienced it in that sense. Um, like I've tried after we won the Thomas Cup, for example, which was a huge accomplishment for us and something that really uh, kind of felt like a big thing also because the media was going crazy in Denmark and we got a lot more attention than what we were used to. And we only had 1 week at home before we had to travel again and play Indonesia Open, which is one of the biggest events. And I think we had Australia Open as well. And back then, I would have liked actually some more time to kind of digest the entire Thomas Cup experience. And I think that time is probably the most important factor in this matter. Also, if you feel something similar to the Olympic blues, is that you should give yourself enough time to kind of move on, digest the experience, take in all the emotions, and figure out, okay, what is going to be my next move, what is going to be the plan for me going forward. Again, as I said, I didn't play the Olympics, but I know quite a few guys from the Danish team that after the Olympics they always get basically all the time they want off after the Olympics to get back in the right mindset, because it is something that's just like it's crazy. It takes all of your energy, it takes all of your focus, and I think the people that are not athletes, they don't really. It's hard for them to understand how much it actually takes of your mental energy and focus, and how draining that is, even though you're only playing for 1 hour or training 2 hours a day or stuff like that at the Olympics. It's still just draining you from energy. So you need that kind of break to recuperate and get your focus back. So I think my best advice and what I would do myself if I got in that situation again is allow myself enough time to find out what my next move is going to be and how I'm going to move on from there. Because in my experience, if you just move on straight away, you will not get the results that will satisfy you anyway. So you will need the time to refocus at some point anyway.
Gonna switch things up a bit and move to like a lighter topic.
Yeah,
What is something you'd say that you didn't expect in the life of a top level badminton player?
that is a good question. Something I didn't expect. I actually don't know what I did expect going into badminton. I probably didn't expect to get so many crazy Indonesian followers on social media. The Indonesians, they really love the badminton. Obviously,
Yeah.
I knew that going into it. my first Asia trip, but you still get blown away when you go there. They are really passionate about badminton, and even when I played there the first time, I was only playing in qualifying. I didn't even qualify for the main draw, and I was still being treated like a star. So I think that took me a time to get used to, and I think that's quite surprising. Even when you hear about it, it's completely different when you go there. So I would say that definitely surprised me a bit.
And I think too that I don't know, I feel like you're one of the athletes that you can, actually see that you're leaving everything on the court. I mean, some of the crazy and unbelievable shots that you do sometimes, I can't even
Yeah,
begin to
definitely.
replicate it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is that I would like to sometimes not dive and not necessarily it's not necessarily the best idea, but if I see there's any chance that I can get to the shuttle, I will just do everything I can to go for it, and I cannot change it, and yeah, it's just part of me that you don't give up until it's over, right? And I think it's fun to see all these fun strokes and dives and stuff on YouTube, and I also enjoy seeing it from others, but it's not always the wisest decision. But yeah, it's just a reaction when I'm on court.
Uh, okay. Moving on. What is the best part of your career so far?
The best part of my career, well, I think in terms of results and stuff like that, 2016 was the best year of my career, where I won the Thomas Cup. I performed really well. I also won the Australian Open. I actually don't. Yeah, that was the same year in 2016. I was ranked top 10 in the world at the time. So that was by far the best years in terms of my achievements. But
So,
yeah, I think in terms of like the best experience, it's not necessarily on court, but the Thomas Cup in 2016 and generally being part of the Thomas Cup team is the memory that I cherish the most. Just the camaraderie and the everything being together with these guys on this team is something special, and also we train as a big group in the national center, so we are really good friends, all of us, and all this like the social life in badminton, even though it's an individual sport. I think that's probably the best memory that I want to take on with me when I quit badminton, and the one thing that I'm gonna miss the most. I know you get new colleagues in another job as well, but it is just something different when you also travel together 120 or 50 days a year. You go on long travels, you go through very highs and very lows together, and I think that gives some kind of a special bond, and that's something I want to cherish, yeah, forever.
I think that, yeah, I remember watching a few of the matches from Thomas Cup, and I don't know,
Mm.
it would be really nice to experience that sort of atmosphere, even just watching in the crowd, your teammates cheering, well, whoever was on court, um, whichever
Mm.
Dean was on court. Yeah, that was really nice to see.
It was amazing to be part of, and the crazy thing was that we are 10 guys on the team. That's the maximum you can be at the Thomas Cup finals, and everyone had at least one win during that week that was important to the team, uh, and it just gave us this kind of feeling that it didn't matter which 6 or 7 players were selected for the final. It was a result of the hard work of all 10 people. So everyone felt like they were part of that final team, even the guys that did not get to play in the final. There was honestly no feeling that it was uh, my victory because I won the final match, or the other 2 singles players who won their matches. We didn't feel like we were a bigger part of the win. It was the same for all of us, and that just made it a really yeah, special week for us. And it's something we will always have together, and we still remind each other every now and then. Actually, we still have a WhatsApp group from 2016 with the
Wow.
team players and the coaches in it. Yeah, we still every now and then we send something funny in that group, and yeah, kind of relive the moments there. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun to have that experience.
Um, I know I'm sort of keeping you back from your food right now, so I'll try to wrap things up. Also, you don't have the option of like choosing what you want.
No, not for the quarantine. They just serve something, and if you don't like it, it's just too bad. So
Wow.
it's a few days from now we will start to get some more options. So we are all looking forward to that.
Well, I guess now you can work on your cooking skills a bit.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Yeah. Would you advise an athlete to play through pain or injury? Well, depending on the situation and like the severity of it. And was there ever a time you had to play through an injury?
Yeah, I've had that quite a few times. I think if you are an elite badminton player and you want to play at the highest level, you cannot avoid injuries. And the calendar is pretty tight and filled up with the tournaments, and there's demands from clubs, sponsors, your federation, everything to perform and compete. And there's consequences if you don't, in terms of ranking or bonuses or getting selected for national teams or whatever. It can be anything. So I think I'm no special in that regard. That I've also had times where I went on court without being fully fit, and I still do sometimes. Um, I don't really see an easy way around it, because even if you do the politically right choice and do not play unless you're fully fit, it will have consequences. There's no way around that. So it's always kind of balancing. Oh yeah, what is the right choice? Can Is this so bad that I absolutely cannot play? Then of course I shouldn't play. But sometimes it also makes sense to play even with some minor injuries. Obviously, you need to take into consideration if you will worsen the injury so much that it becomes a issue or an issue. Um, I had a big issue with my heel at some point, and I ignored that for way too long. And in the end, it became a big problem every day when I was training. I couldn't really lunge on my leg the way I had to, so I was holding back maybe 5-10%, and that's doable for a short period of time. But in the long run, that's gonna kill you. Not literally kill you, but it is gonna be something that's going to hold you back in your development, and the longer you ignore it, the worse it will get. But I'm not going to sit here and say that if you are hurting, you shouldn't play. You should always balancing it. It's different if you're just playing for fun once or twice a week, but if you're at the highest level, you will have to play through pain sometimes. At least that's my opinion. If you don't, you do not push yourself hard enough to become one of the very best. And I know it's not the politically correct thing to say, but I honestly believe that's how it is.
Yeah, that was something I struggled with as well. Um, I felt like ever since I started playing badminton, I always had well, it's been this recurring injury with my shin splints, and it's like one of the
Yeah.
I can't imagine a worse injury, and that's why I'm sort of like grateful um for the quarantine time, because I mean I
Mm.
haven't been able to train since March 2020, so I've been able to focus on you know like strengthening the leg and seeing a physio,
Mm.
because I mean I've had to play with shin splints probably 80%, 70-80% of the time anytime I'm on court, and it's like I can't afford to really let's say forfeit the game 80% of the time, so I'll just uh, play through the pain. um
Mm.
but yeah, I think with this quarantine time I've like sort of focused on, okay, I want to play badminton for a long time, and shin splints may hinder the longevity that I'll be able to play for. And
Mm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's the sort of silver lining for those who are going through injuries right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you also have a good point that you like work with a physio, and I didn't mention that of course if you have something that keeps annoying you or yeah, stuff like that, just we need to accept that we cannot deal with everything on our own. I don't know everything about my body or injuries and stuff like that, so you should always seek help and get the advice of a physiotherapist or a doctor. Again, I haven't maybe followed their advice every single time, because in the end it's still myself that needs to make the decision if I want to play or not. But you should always get the advice before you make any kind of decision, if this is something that's so bad you need to stop, or if you can play a few matches with it.
Yeah, because I think I was a bit naive before seeing a physio. I mean, I thought I knew everything about my body, but clearly I didn't. And just doing like assessments. So from the first session, you realize how many deficits there could be in your body, and that is what could result in injury. So yeah. I'll just close off with probably two more questions.
Sure.
In your opinion, what is the most important thing athletes should be doing right now during this COVID time? With some people still not be able to train or train as frequently as pre-COVID. So.
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing is to try and stay in shape as well as possible. You might not be able to do the sport that you want to be good at. So if you don't have access to a badminton hall or badminton gym, maybe you cannot play badminton. But you should definitely keep active, and if you cannot go for a run, or if you don't have access to weights or anything, there are so many things available, especially online nowadays, with physical training programs that you can do even in your room or in your living room or wherever. You just need a chair or a box or something as equipment, and even sometimes you don't even need equipment. But it is vital that you get it done, even if it's boring. Because if you don't do it, it will just take longer when you get back on court to get back into badminton shape. So I can only stress that you should really keep active, also to avoid injuries when you get back. Because when we all get back to normal, the worst thing that I can see happening is that everyone just wants to play all the time, and because they haven't been playing normally for basically a year, they will get so many overuse injuries. So I really hope that everyone is understanding the importance of staying active in any way possible. And it's different from country to country how bad the lockdowns are, but it's definitely my main point that you need to stay physically active. And then on the other hand, I think it's quite important that you also try to kind of let go mentally, so you don't think badminton all the time, because you will, at least I would get kind of depressed that if I think about badminton all the time and I cannot go to play it, I will just get depressed, even more and more depressed, just thinking about it and thinking about how I'm not able to do this. Instead, focus on something else, focus on what you can do, and kind of let go, because this is out of our control. You cannot control when the lockdown is over, or you cannot control when the badminton gyms open again. So yeah, I would try to let that be my game plan, sort of to focus on what you can do, and focus on something completely different than badminton when you're not doing your physical training, or watching video and stuff like that. Because that's obviously also a thing that you can do. You can watch video of your old matches or some other matches on YouTube, or whatever. It's pretty accessible for everyone. I think most people they have an internet connection, so you can do stuff like that. But I would let my mind get off when I'm not specifically working on badminton.
I think that is a sort of positive note to end on. So thank you, HK, for being a part of this. And if you have any last thoughts or words of encouragement to athletes. Do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, well, it's just been a real pleasure to be on your show, and I hope to see badminton grow not only in Trinidad but the entire Pan Am region. And as we've been talking about earlier in this interview, I just want to recommend everyone to remember that badminton is supposed to be fun. So if at some point you don't think it's so much fun to train 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a week, just tone down a little bit and try to see if you can find the fun in badminton. You won't get anywhere if it's not fun. So that is the most important thing in badminton, to have fun.
Thank you again for being a part of this. And if any of the athletes or just anyone in general who is watching this, they want to get in touch with you or keep up to date with your training and tournaments and life in general, where can they reach you?
Yeah, they can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And my username is usually HK Vittinghus. I think on Facebook they need to probably just search for Vittinghus and they will show up. But on Instagram and Twitter, it's HK Vittinghus. And yeah, they can just send me a message or mention me, and I'll see it. And they can also follow my podcast, which is available on all podcast platforms. It's called A Year on Tour with Vittinghus. So search for Vittinghus in the podcast app, and they will find it for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say that I really enjoy your podcast. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it now, and yeah, the interviews are really great.
Thank you so much. I will keep on doing it for sure. I also enjoy doing it.
Well, I'll let you go to your Thai food now and relax a bit and enjoy the rest of your quarantine. And I'll be rooting for you at the Thailand Open.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you.
That just says everything about Hans-Kristian Vittinghus, willing to put himself through hell to win one rally. I mean, 3 times on the floor.
Yeah, and what a wonderful sporting gesture.